call this meeting to order. Folks, I'm really glad that you came down to make sure that we do this correctly. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Margaret. Anyhow, we're here tonight for the sole purpose of adopting a resolution to take care of the remaining ARPA funds that have not been obligated officially or correctly. Back when we first got the money, we said we would use it for this 5 or 6 or 7 different items. However, that doesn't satisfy the federal government's requirement of obligation unless you get a purchase order, spend the money, and get the product. Last month at the Selectboard meeting, I said that the $50,000 could not be used for the fire truck. In several conversations with VLCT since, and eventually letting them know that we used that for the down payment, the lady said, "Oh, well, that's okay. You can use it for the down payment, but once you take the loan out, that's a debt and you cannot use it to pay down debt." So there was just confusion between her and I. So that's good. That is still in there, which brings us to the amounts that have been spent. And I'm just going to read down through them, basically to put it on the record tonight. But the ventilation upgrades was $27,510, and we spent $27,510. The IT infrastructure upgrades for the town office was $40,000. We have spent $29,081.76, leaving a balance of $10,918.24. Fire department computer upgrade, $9,424, $7,667.60 spent, leaving a balance of $1,756.40. Bartley Field, $5,000. Spent $4,271.70, leaving a balance of $728.30. The pump park, $9,000, $9,000 spent. Road signs, $5,000, $3,509.29 spent, leaving a balance of $1,490.71. And the fire department was a flat $50,000 portion to the down payment. Total unspent is $14,893, so that becomes part of the funds that will obligate tonight. Total spent was $131,040.35. Total income was $190,460.77. Remaining to obligate, including that $14,000 I just mentioned, is $59,420. So that's where we're at. There is a resolution here that came from Vermont League of Cities and Towns. And she told me I should read the entire resolution in the meeting. So I will do that, even though it'll bore some people, including me. Resolution for the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA allocation. Whereas on March 11th, 2021, the President of the United States signed into law the American Rescue Plan Act to provide continued relief from the public health and economic impacts of the COVID-19 public health emergency. And whereas ARPA created the Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Fund that provided direct funding to state, local, and tribal governments across the country to support their response to and recovery from the COVID-19 public health emergency. And whereas the town of Reading has accepted an allocation of SLFRF in the amount of $190,460.77. And whereas SLFRF provides needed fiscal relief for recipients that have experienced revenue loss due to the onset of the COVID-19 public health emergency. And whereas Treasury presumes that up to 10 million in revenue has been lost due to the public health emergency, and recipients are permitted to use that amount not to exceed the award amount to fund government services. And whereas recipients may elect a standard allowance of 10 million to spend on government services through the period of performance. And whereas all recipients may elect to use this standard allowance instead of calculating lost revenue using the formula provided by the U.S. Department of Treasury, including those with total allocations of 10 million or less. And whereas the town of Reading has the need to fund government services while in the recovery phase of the COVID-19 pandemic, now therefore be it resolved, the Select Board of the Town of Reading, Vermont authorize the following. Section 1, the following allocation of SLFRF funding to fund government services under the replacing lost public sector revenue spending category as follows. Expend state and local fiscal recovery fund funds in the amount up to $59,420.42 for the purpose of municipal operating expenses as outlined below for the period 7/1/2023 through 6/30/2024. Those funds, those expenses are town clerk salary of $33,982, Board of Listers chairman of $25,438.42 for a total of $59,420. Passed and adopted by the Select Board of the Town of Reading, Vermont on the 23rd day of December. With all of that said, I would like to make a motion at this point in time that reads almost exactly like the expend portion of this, that the Town of Reading expend state and local fiscal recovery funds in the amount of $59,420.42 for the purpose of municipal operating expenses as outlined below for the period 7/1/23 through 6/30/2024. Those being the town clerk salary of $33,982 and the Board of Listers chairman salary of $25,438.42 for a total amount of $59,420.42. That is my motion.
I will second that motion.
Any questions or discussion? I realized that was relatively long-winded, but it was right from VLCT, and then I've been nervous about dotting the i's and crossing the t's since about October when they started coming out with all of these comments in their news. Be sure to obligate your funds. Be sure to obligate your funds. And never came out with a flyer of what you needed to do and what you couldn't do until November. So here we are. Any questions?
Just to clarify, so that 59 is after the 50 is basically used for down payment.
That's right. It's the 50,000 is safe. That we've already spent.
Right.
Yeah.
I do have a barn roof that could use replacing.
I have just a curious question. So before the meeting, I was looking at the regulation. So from what I understand, the money can be used for the operating expense, even if those expenses didn't directly relate to COVID. So it wasn't additional services provided for COVID. And it sounds like the government said, you can do this up to $10 million without anybody questioning. Is that, I'm just curious for my own understanding. Is that?
Basically what this does is it moves this money into the general fund. We have designated it to offset those two salaries. That now frees up the funds of those two salaries for us to use basically as we see fit. Okay? Under the guidelines of COVID or under the guidelines of APRA, obviously, but there's very few restrictions once we pass this motion.
Does it need to be stuff? It sounds like you've just.
I think once it's in
Yeah,
the general.
well,
fund,
it's
just
under-
surplus, so to speak.
Under the guidelines of ARPA, we have spent the money based on what we should have or could have. And basically it goes to, if you read the document, it goes to employee retention. It's basically what it's,
To bonus, right?
You too, you gotta do Marvin.
was that a question?
No, it was a statement, Robert.
It's similar to the PPP, right? The PPP was that as well.
What's that?
The PPP for small businesses was functionally very similar. This is just that the government,
Yeah.
small government kind of.
Yeah. That is something that was pretty well hidden when we started with ARPA.
Yeah.
But that's because probably ARPA was this thick and nobody took the time to read every
There was
paragraph.
400 pages of Department of Treasury regulations when it began the thing, and then it changed about every other week. So keeping up with it if you're a small
Right.
town with volunteer help.
It was horrible, yeah, it was horrible.
So we have a motion on the floor. We have any other questions? Comments? All those in favor?
I
Aye,
Sign it,
approved.
sign it.
We will sign this. I don't even have the agenda in front of me. I think I put a list, another in there. I have nothing other to discuss on this subject tonight.
No, I
Yeah.
think we're good.
Okay. I'll accept the motion.
I'm good with that motion.
Yeah, that ain't the motion. I'm looking for.
Oh, good. You're accepting the motion to adjourn.
You are correct.
Yes.